Hey, AP Govers. Um, I was in the process of trying to write you guys an email, trying to give you all the information that I possibly could about this test, and I've had a lot of questions about whether or not you guys should, go ahead with the test. I know there's a refund option. A lot of people have asked me about whether that's the right move, whether they should do the refund, whether it makes sense to take the test. So I figured rather than trying to type all that out in an email, it's a lot easier for me just to record a little video and kind of give you my thoughts on this. So, um, you guys probably at this point should have seen all of the changes to the test. I sent out some information to you guys about that. It's up on my webpage. They have made some pretty serious changes to the test, some good, some bad. Um, but just to kind of give you a brief overview of what that is, the test is now going to be online. You guys are going to do it from your home, and it's going to look quite a bit different than it did or was going to look originally. Originally, you guys were going to take a test that was going to be 50% multiple choice and 50% free response. Um, the free response section was going to have 4 questions. Each of those 4 questions would be worth 1/4 of that 50% or 12.5%, all equal. And then you were going to be given a grand total of 1 hour and 40 minutes to answer all 4 of those questions. Well, they totally chopped the multiple choice. There's going to be no multiple choice. And then they took the free response, they chopped that in half. So rather than doing a scenario, a quantitative SCOTUS comparison, and an argumentative essay, the new test is going to be simply a scenario question and an argumentative. And then in terms of percentages, the argumentative is going to be worth 60% of your overall grade and the scenario 40%. They've also changed the time constraints. Originally, they were just going to give you a block of 1 hour and 40 minutes to answer all 4 of the FRQs. Now they're giving you 2 individual blocks of time. The first block of time will be for the scenario. They will give you 15 minutes rather than their original suggested 20 minutes to get that one done. And then the argumentative, they had originally suggested that you take 40 minutes to write that. They've chopped you down to 25. Now, they did change the rubric a little bit to accommodate that, but it is a significantly lower amount of time than you were originally going to have to write your argumentative essay. So I wanted to talk just a little bit about what I think is the positives and the negatives, because I think there's a little bit of both here with this. And I figure, once we've kind of talked about that, you guys can make a decision as to whether you want to go ahead with the test or whether you want to just request a refund. I think it is nice that College Board is giving you an option to take the test rather than just canceling it, because that means that, all the time that you've put in towards the test can still count towards college credit. And if they just cancel it, obviously that wouldn't be an option for you. So that there is a positive to that. But let me talk a little bit about what I don't like about what they've done. The first thing, they've chopped the multiple choice. I think that's the biggest problem. And, had we spent some time getting into some review, we would have been talking a little bit about how the multiple choice, in my mind, is where you need to make your money. It's the part that I think is the easiest to gain as many points as possible on, because it's really just, do you know your information? There's a right answer. It can be found. You guys historically have done better on multiple choices. Teaching this class for a decade or so, students always score better on the multiple choice than they do on the FRQ. So it automatically makes me a little bit concerned when they just cancel that part of the test. So that I see as a potential problem. And then with the FRQ, the 2 that they picked, the scenario is a relatively easy question, but the argumentative is without a doubt the hardest of the FRQ questions. And it now counts for not 12.5% of your overall grade, but 60%. So that also kind of has me a little bit concerned. That's pretty high stakes for just one single question. So I do see that as a potential problem. When we talk about time, I think we have another thing that we have to concern ourselves with, and that is the idea that there is going to be a very, very short amount of time for you guys to work on this. You got to get it. You got to get it down really quickly. I know why College Board did that. I think they're a little bit concerned about cheating, and by giving you much more time to work on it, I think they're concerned that you're going to be looking up answers and doing research, and that'll kind of skew the results a little bit. So they want you to feel a little bit of pressure of time, but I question as to whether or not 25 minutes is enough time to even do what they've asked you to do on the argumentative essay. So that also kind of makes me a little bit concerned, and in my mind is the real, sort of negative to this, and then individually timing the test also creates a bit of a problem. Originally just giving you guys a block, of an hour and 40 minutes to answer 4 questions, you can kind of allot your time as you see fit. So if you, get done with a question a little bit early, that just buys you a little bit more time on another question. These are going to be timed individually. So you'll have 15 minutes and then 5 to upload. And then once that caps off, you're going to start your 25-minute timer on your argumentative essay. You can't, use extra time from the scenario for the argumentative or vice versa. You're capped at that amount of time. So there really is a big time constraint on this. And that absolutely has me a little bit concerned. Is there positive to this? I think there is. I think the big positive is preparation. You guys, know how the argumentative essay operates. It's based on foundational documents, and we know what those foundational documents are. And because you're taking this at home, you could create or give yourself a little bit of an opportunity to have a little bit of a cheat sheet, something that you could reference very quickly when it comes to answering that question. So if you get a question and your foundational documents that are listed are, some portion of the Constitution, maybe Article 2 and Federalist Number 70, if you had a cheat sheet for each of those, you'd throw away the rest of them, the other foundational documents that don't apply. You'd take a look at just those. You could have written down on those sheets some quotes, the main ideas of the paper, what you have to know, what could be helpful information, and having that kind of aid with you, it should make it a little bit easier for you to, craft an argument and really make make that evidence really strong. And then, of course, you tie that evidence all back into whatever you create for your thesis. Now, again, they did make a change to the rubric that I talked about with the argumentative essay as well, which makes life a little bit easier for us. They chopped out the counter argument, so you don't have to, preview a counter argument in your thesis anymore, and you can just, get started right away on kind of jotting down evidence that relates to the topic, whatever that might be, and that's pretty much it, and then tying all that back into your thesis, explaining how that evidence, supports whatever argument you're trying to make. But you don't have to worry about that counter argument. So that makes our life just a little bit easier than it was originally, because the counter can be a little bit difficult, the refutation or the concession. You guys struggle with that sort of stuff a little bit. So that is kind of nice. So the pro in my mind is really, you have an opportunity to have things in front of you that you can use. Does that outweigh the cons? I don't know. It's totally up to you guys. I think when it comes to making a decision as to whether you want to take this test or not, I think what you have to decide is whether or not you want to put in the time and the effort over the course of the next few weeks to really get yourself prepared for this. I'll do everything I can to try and help you. I've tried to put as much stuff as I possibly could up on my website to help you guys go through and learn this information, especially on the civil rights and civil liberties, which is stuff that we haven't covered and content that you're going to be expected to know. So are you going to spend the time going through it? If you are, if you devote yourself to maybe creating some sort of a detailed cheat sheet on the foundational documents, creating some sort of a cheat sheet on all the SCOTUS cases, which you very well could get some sort of a question, certainly a scenario question related to. If you go through and, you look at the videos and, you make your review guides and do all the stuff that I put up on that website, I think there's a real nice opportunity for you guys to do well on this. If you don't want to put in that time and effort to doing that, I think this is going to be a more difficult test, than it originally was going to be. It's high stakes. You have 2 questions. And if you do well on those 2 questions, you're going to do very well. If you do poor on just one of those 2 questions, you're going to do very poorly. You don't have any leeway on this. There's no margin for error. So if you get yourself prepared and you have all the stuff that you need and you're ready to go and you can kind of hit the ground running and get this, which is a very quick test, just a 45-minute test, you have a good opportunity to get some college credit. But there is no doubt there are some challenges to this. And I think that is something that you have to consider as well. So I hope I've kind of hit everything, and whether or not this is a good idea or a bad idea to go ahead and do, and helped you kind of come to that decision. All FRQ, it scares me a little bit. 60% of the test from just an argumentative essay, that scares me quite a bit. But again, we have some things that we can use to kind of tilt the scales in our favor a little bit. It just relies on you guys doing a little bit of work on your own. So I put something on my website. I took off all that extra information that I originally had on there, and I put a Google slide on there that kind of walks through all the changes to the test, kind of in a real succinct way. And at the very end of it, I put the information related to getting a refund. If you decide that you do want to go that route, you don't want to take the test, you don't think that you want to put the time into it, or you don't think that doing just 2 FRQs gives you an opportunity to be successful, I won't be mad at you. It's totally your decision. It's totally up to you. It would make sense in a lot of ways. You can send an email to Mr. McAllister. Again, all that information I put at the end of the slides. I put his email on there, and then just make sure in the subject line you put what was it, AP refund, I think is what he wanted you to put, so he knows what that website is, or he knows what the email's about. If you decide you want to go ahead and do it, that's great. But now it's time to get to work. So I will, over the course of the next week, be trying to put out a schedule of things that I suggest that you do. Again, the content that you have to know has been limited. We only have to know College Board Units 1, 2, and 3. So we have to know foundations. We have to know the interaction between branches. So we have to know a decent amount about how the legislative branch functions, the executive branch, including the bureaucracy, and the judicial branch. And then civil liberties and civil rights, which we unfortunately didn't get much of a chance to get into. Really disappointed, because it is, as I told you guys, my favorite unit to go through. I try to save it to the end to really kind of cap off the class in a nice way, and then of course school is closed. But those are the 3 units we have to know. We don't have to know all that detail that we covered on elections and political parties and interest groups and the media and political socialization and all that sort of nonsense. We don't have to know any of that. Really just the Constitution. That's all we have to know. You need to know Article 1, Article 2, Article 3, and the Bill of Rights. And if we know those things, we're going to be in pretty good shape to be able to do this. So anyways, it's disappointing. I feel like we didn't really have a good opportunity to kind of cap things off. We don't have any closure with our class. I actually miss being in there with you guys and going through this stuff. You guys are a fun class, and I miss being there with you. But I still hold out hope that maybe towards the end of the year we have a chance to kind of get back together shortly and kind of close out the year a little bit. But I hope you guys are enjoying your time off. I hope you're all safe and healthy and getting some good sleep. And I don't know. I guess I don't have much else to say to you, but stay well. If you have any kind of questions, please let me know. Send me an email. Shoot me a message on Remind. I'd be happy to help you guys in any way that I can. And I guess we'll see you guys soon. See ya.